Welcome everyone, Questini here with a discussion about the best campaigns currently in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires, the Forge of the Chaos Dwarves edition, because certainly some things have been shaken up on the campaign map with the addition of the Chaos Dwarves and the remake of the Darklands. Now, I do want to give a special shout out or an honorary mention for Morathi, because she does actually have a pretty good and powerful campaign at her hands. It is actually fairly enjoyable. You can conquer Ulfon pretty quickly, you have a lot of flexibility on the campaign map, you have a good economy, you have a control benefit. Morathi's campaign just works. Of all the Dark Elven campaigns right now, I think hers is the best. I mean, she's certainly the best empire builder of the Dark Elves. Lokir is better from just the perspective of being able to smash and grab really quickly, but Morathi certainly has always been a strong Legendary Lord in the game, and she has remained such in Warhammer 3. In fact, her Warhammer 3 campaign is significantly better than her Warhammer 2 campaign. Just lots of provinces, easy to take early on, not many foes to deal with, you can avoid the War of Mazdamundi, and you can go conquer Ulfon pretty quickly and expand across the campaign map pretty quickly and efficiently. At number 5, we have Deathmaster Snikch of the Skaven, who is the best Skaven Legendary Lord in the game right now. If Gunpowder units worked better, then certainly Icknclaw would be a top contender for this spot, but to be honest, they don't. And also Icknclaw does have some issues because of his starting situation, whereas Snikch starts in one of the best areas on the campaign map, which is Grand Cafe. It's Grand Cafe or the Darklands that are two of the best areas in the game at the moment. But what makes Snikch special? Well, he doesn't have to deal with the loyalty situation. He gets special missions available through shadowy dealings, dealing with client contracts for various factions, getting a bunch of Ashen actions that do give him a substantial amount of flexibility on the campaign map, and also being the strongest faction in all of Grand Cafe. Now, here's the reason Snikch also works the best of the Skaven. In general, if you're playing a Skaven Legendary Lord, the units you want to focus on are the ones that you can get through the Hidden Lair. Now, Snikch can get this earlier at Tier 1. Most other Skaven Legendary Lords may only get this at Tier 2. So that's already a huge benefit in your campaign if you're playing as Snikch. Now, Snikch has the best of the Night Runners and Gut Runners, but you should be using Night Runners and Gutter Runners in every Skaven campaign, simply because they're the best melee units. They're far better than Clan Rats in melee in a fight because of the physical resistance, the fact that they do have precursor weaponry. They'll just do better in field battles and even in sieges. Not quite as cheap, but substantially better. What sets Snikch apart is that he really buffs their range potential. Not their melee potential, that remains unchanged, but their range potential, because these units don't really have a great deal of range damage. But he then takes these units and gives them armor piercing damage. So if we look at the Night Runners that he has, most of their damage is going to be armor piercing damage as opposed to just being base damage. So Snikch is all about making Night Runners and Gutter Runners work, and every single one of his army work very well in terms of their range capability. He does obviously have some drawbacks. The most notable drawback is that he can't put a Warlock lab to increase his Warlock engineer capacity in his campaign, which is a bit of a shame. So he's going to get far fewer of these Warlock engineers in his campaign, because generally speaking they require a tier 5 settlement to increase capacity. But outside of that, he does have a lot of benefits. He gets snipe, stalk, speed, and missile strength for those units. He also can revitalize all units in your armies to full health, basically meaning that you can go from battle, take significant casualties, and then restore them when you are facing a major opponent. So quite a lot of benefits in this campaign. A great campaign area, a really strong Legendary Lord. Like, he was released at the same time as Malice Darkblade as a counter to him, and suffice to say, Malice Darkblade has always been a significant melee combatant. Snikch was released to counter him. He's really good at assassination, but he's also just good in general in battles on the campaign map. He'll do pretty well. He does have good items. He just has a lot of benefits in his campaign for the currently best Skaven playstyle, the current Skaven meta, which is focused on Gutter Runners and Night Runners, and then getting Plague Claws and then Poison Wind Mortars. He does start with a Poison Wind Mortar team. So the best Skaven campaign. If you don't own this DLC, yes, you could go with Ica Claw, you could go with Skrolk. Surprisingly, yes, Skrolk does have a pretty good campaign, or Queek Headtaker. Front is also a lot of fun, but Front does suffer because Kislev is designed in a really horrible manner by Creative Assembly, and so Front will suffer in his campaign because of that. But Israel can be a very fun and enjoyable campaign to engage in. Also, interesting point, by the way, here is that they've changed his starting position around a bit. So so before, you would have a turn where as Queek you can take over settlement, so you'd be losing some time, but now you can take the Village of the Moon on turn 1. So that is really nice and really beneficial in his campaign. It means he can get a head start over his rivals faster than he would before, because just losing a turn in a campaign can matter a great deal in the early game. At number 4, we have Oxyotl, who's had a good campaign ever since Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires has come out, and still has one of the best campaigns in the game. Now, what's great about Oxyotl's campaign isn't what's happening over here in the Southern Cast Waste, because this can be pretty boring, pretty straightforward, and pretty dull, really, because you will easily sweep up aside any kind of competition over here, including Kairos, who can be quite a bit powerful when controlled by the AI, but you are far stronger than him. Now, here's the thing about Oxyotl's campaign. You're not just fighting a campaign in the Southern Cast Wastes. You're fighting a campaign across the world. You have a great deal of flexibility, and you will have to travel the world as Oxyotl, dealing with the various threats of chaos or evil forces of destruction around the campaign map, because Oxyotl, through divisions of the Old Ones, he will be engaging with the campaign around the world. And once you teleport to a location, you can obviously teleport back next turn, or you can just stay there and carve yourself a massive empire. You have access to every climate type in the game. Everything is suitable, so you can carve up a vast and powerful lizardman empire across the entirety of the known world. And that is great. That kind of flexibility in a campaign is what can make a campaign really, really good. And Oxyotl's army, although he isn't a powerful combatant himself, Oxyotl's army is really focused on the skirmisher infantry of the Skinks, specifically the Chameleon Skinks in his campaign, and of course the Chameleon Stalkers, both really good units, especially in Oxyotl's army, and on overall faction-wise, because he gets an upkeep benefit and additional benefits to those units as they rank up. These guys will win a fight potentially without losing any single model in a particular unit, because they do quite a lot of damage. They also do poison attacks, which slows the enemy down and reduces their damage as well. And they also have stock and Vanguard deployment, and they can fire while moving. So a really powerful army, a great campaign playstyle. If there is any particular downside, I'd say, with Oxyotl's campaign design, it's simply the fact that it can be pretty dull, because you always have the initiative, you'll have control where and when you're fighting. Oxyotl's own army, the one you're going to be using to teleport around the world, doesn't incur diplomatic penalties when trespassing on enemy territory. So that's great. It's really like you're playing the Lizardman XCOM in Total War Warhammer, and while some people in the past have complained that the missions may be a bit too easy, that's not really the point. The missions don't need to be hard, but what they do need to do is incentivize you as the player to travel around the world. You can also get units as rewards, blessed spawnings as rewards. Now you can recruit these guys for free. So imagine just showing up in a territory, taking it over, recruiting a second lord, then filling that army with blessed spawnings and regiments of renown, and suddenly you have two really, really powerful army, let's say right next to Grimgor. And you are stronger than Grimgor, you're stronger than Archeon. You can be one of the strongest legendary lords, or you can have a really hard campaign if you so desire. I think what's great about this campaign is that you have the flexibility to decide how it's going to go. But to be honest, I think it can also be too easy as a campaign. Not because I think the missions are too easy, rather because due to that kind of flexibility around the campaign map, the teleportation ability on the campaign map, you're just going to walk up to a faction at its weakest and just annihilate them whenever it's possible. And that means you can carve yourself a really large empire very quickly with minimal opposition. At number 3, we have Alith Anar. Until the release of the Forge of the Chaos Dwarves, Alith Anar had the best campaign in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires, and he still earns a high spot on this particular list. See, what's great about Alith Anar is that, like Snikch and Oxyotl, he's focusing on ambushing and about skirmisher infantry units. His special unit are the Shadow Walkers, who can also recruit Shadow Warriors at Tier 2 as opposed to Tier 3, which you would generally need. All his armies have an ambush stance with a minus 15% ambush success chance, but still an ambush chance as their default movement stance. Then they can also use the underway. That is a significant amount of campaign power. So you might think, oh, this campaign is a steamroll. It is not. Sure, you gain a lot of money through assassination missions. You have a legendary lord that buffs the missile strength of all your armies faction-wide. You have a good deal of faction benefits, influence as well for these missions, faction-wide benefits in terms of like growth, etc. But here's the thing, this campaign is not easy. In fact, it's a powerful legendary lord, but with a difficult campaign, and I think that's great design by Creative Assembly. You have Crone Hellebron to the north, who's going to send army after army after army against you. Then you have Malekith, you have Katep as well over here to the west, though you might want to ally Katep and wipe out the Sisters of Twilight. Don't ally yourself with the Wood Elves, they make for poor allies. Then you have Morathi. And you have Be'lakor, who might as well be singing Rule Britannia in his campaign, as he is aggressively pushing against all of his neighbors to try and conquer them in his campaign. He doesn't end up being more than a speed bump or a major annoyance in all the campaigns, but you certainly have a difficult starting position in this campaign. But you have all of the tools, all of the power needed to win these battles and succeed in this campaign. And I think that is great campaign design, and I think that's what makes this campaign really fun and really engaging, that you have a powerful legendary lord, but isn't a cakewalk of a campaign, at least early on, for like the first 30, 40 turns. Now, Alariel is better at empire building if you're playing a High Elven campaign, but the Alith Anar is certainly much better in terms of his campaign design, in terms of the early game, in terms of just the gameplay flow of his campaign. It is fun, it is enjoyable, it is powerful, it is ridiculously powerful in certain circumstances if you can get those ambushes going. So there's a lot of things to enjoy if you're playing an Alith Anar campaign. I certainly think he's better than Oxyotl. I know people voted Oxyotl higher than Alith Anar or Snikch, but I do think Alith Anar, while he certainly lacks the campaign flexibility of Oxyotl's campaign, he does have a better campaign design, and there's something special about playing the High Elven version of the Punisher, because that's what Alith Anar is. He's on a quest of revenge against this douchebag right here. Yes, he's gonna teach Malekith his place in the world. At number 2, we have Grimgor Ironhide, who is currently the strongest legendary lord in the game between his faction fix, his starting position, his ability to take Zarnagrund within 2 turns, 5 turns, 11 turns, or thereabouts, and being able to access the entirety of the very versatile and strong roster of the Greenskins, from their infantry units to their ranged units to their monstrous units, so even their artillery. Yes, the Greenskins do have some decent artillery choices early on in their campaign, with the Rock Lobbers being pretty effective in sieges, and of course the Doom Divers as well. Grimgor is certainly the strongest in the game, and generally speaking, when it comes to a good campaign, I wouldn't put a legendary lord that is as strong as him, because the Warriors of Chaos are very, very powerful, but they're not really good campaigns at the moment. They're very boring. Grimgor's campaign, however, is strong, but also a great deal of fun. You can achieve a faction strength rank 1 pretty quickly, and you'll demolish all of your opponents, but there's a lot of fun and joy in doing so. And certainly a great deal of power that you do have available in this campaign. It's also great to play a campaign where you really take advantage of the redesign of the Darklands for yourself and achieve a great deal of power and walk over your enemies pretty quickly and pretty effectively. This is a really good campaign, and it's interesting to see how Grimgor has always stayed relevant in Warhammer, minus the part where the Greenskins were suffering, especially like early on in Warhammer 2, or for a good portion of Warhammer 2, until they redesigned them. Since then, the Greenskins have been a really, really powerful race, very versatile, great fun to play, great campaign mechanics, and they've benefited a lot from the kind of aggressive playstyle that you need to embrace on higher difficulties when playing Warhammer 3, or any kind of difficulty really. Being aggressive in Total War Warhammer 3 is certainly the way to go, and Grimgor certainly embraces that. has a lot of campaign potential in his campaign, has a good amount of landmarks. So this one is kind of hidden. If you're like scrolling like here, you can't necessarily see the landmark icon over here in Carrick Flag. They moved that from Saber Mountain to Carrick Vrag. So I was kind of wondering initially when I saw the campaign, I was like, where's Grimgor's landmark? Well, it's over here in his starting province. He has a great starting province. He starts next to another good province over here in the Plains of Zar. And really, there's no one that can stop Grimgor in this campaign. Zaytan can't stop you, Kolic can't stop you, Astrogoth can't stop you when controlled by the AI. There's a reason Grimgor has been a very powerful AI faction ever since the launch of Warhammer 3, and he is absurdly strong if you are playing him yourself. Lots of potential, but it's not a completely free ride. You do have to work for it to a certain extent, because greenskins are not like warriors of chaos. Greenskins do need to hold territory. They can't just get a bunch of dark fortresses and call it a day and let their vassals do all the work for them. You do need to conquer this territory for yourself, and one of the things that does help keep the greenskins in check is the fact that a lot of factions do hate them for various reasons in their campaigns. But still, good mechanics, good economy, good design, and Grimgor is currently the best legendary lord of the greenskins and the best legendary lord in the entire game. Finally, at number 1, we have Drazhoath the Ashen. I think the Chaos Dwarves as a race are certainly the best race currently in the game. The reason is not because they're the most powerful, though they certainly can achieve a great deal of power through the Tower of Zar Seeds, through their research, through the units they can recruit, through their settlements, through their mega mortars and dreadquake cannons that they can use in a battle. They certainly have a great deal of power, but you do have to work for it, and that means you have to actually play a campaign in a fairly intelligent way and develop your territory very carefully, like build an outpost over here, build a factory here, manage your labor system, manage conclave influence, manage labor actions, deal with the cafe and caravans that are going to be coming in your territory. There's a lot of things to manage, and I love it. I think that the Chaos Dwarves in general are really, really good to play. They have a lot of things going for them, a bunch of mechanics that are certainly better designed than a lot of the other races in the game, even very powerful races, that is. A fairly good and versatile roster. I would say they're only lacking in the range department, because gunpowder units are good, can be good, but obviously they do have limitations that gunpowder units in general have. But you do have to work to unlock the full potential of power in a Chaos Dwarf campaign. Now, Drazhoath himself is really strong. He is probably, without a doubt, one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful caster in the game, because the Flames of Asgore right now, especially for him, because he can significantly reduce the Winds of Magic cost for them, being able to use that ability for such a low price is absolutely ridiculous. Because you're looking at the Flames of Asgore, right? And you look at the cost reduction that you can get over here. So you're looking at 15, then you're... that is absurd. I'm sorry, I just had to laugh there, because that is so absurd. So the default cost of the Flames of Asgore, if you upgrade it, is 15, right? Then you look at a special skill line, and you're looking at 9 Winds of Magic for one of the most powerful opponent spells in the campaign. It is absurd how much power this guy has. He has major economic benefits and armaments. Armament and raw material production. He'll gain a lot of laborers for the cafe and caravans that will stop over here in the Black Fortress, and you will have a blast playing this campaign. This is not like a Grimgor situation where you just dominate everyone. You actually have to work for victory in this campaign, because you have Tretch. He doesn't like you. He's likely going to go to war against you. Emmerich, Gorst, Greasus, a bunch of factions that do despise you, including the Dwarves over here. Grimgor certainly despises you. See, the thing in a lot of campaigns that start next to Grimgor, he is a brutal fight to deal with, but at least you can deal with him early game if you know what you're doing, like Astrogoth, Zaytan, Kolic, right? Well, as Drazhoath, you don't get that luxury. Now, maybe you get lucky, and someone like Kolic or Zaytan clips his wings, and you don't have that major fight on your hands, but in 9 out of 10 situations on Legendary Very Hard difficulty, chances are Grimgor is going to win that fight, and in 20 turns, he's going to be starting his advance towards you. He hates you as Drazhoath, so you're going to have to deal with him in your campaign. And that is going to be a pretty brutal situation to tackle, because you're not going to be dealing with the weak, quote-unquote, early game Grimgor that Astrogoth or Kolic might have to deal with. The weak early game still is Grimgor gaining very high ranks, like rank 10 in 10 turns, having a full stack with having 3 full stacks or 2 full stacks with wands attached to them within the first 10 turns of the game. You're going to be dealing with Grimgor like turn 20, 30. He's going to have 3, 4, 5 armies. It was kind of funny. I was watching Legend of Total War stream on the subject, and when he encountered Grimgor, and I think he had already fought him by that point and defeated him to a certain extent, and then a couple of turns later, you just see the tide of green advancing on Legend of Total War, and it was hilarious. That is this campaign in a nutshell. It's amazing because you have a lot of power, but you also have one of the most powerful enemies to deal with in your campaign. You have a better time in this campaign because you have to deal with Grimgor. And I love a campaign where you have power and where you're not restrained by building restrictions or anything like that. You can gain a lot of economy, but you have a biblical challenge on your hands. Grimgor is an endgame crisis from turn 1 on pretty much any difficulty. That's what you're dealing with when you're playing a Drazhoath campaign or any Cast Dwarf campaign. You're dealing with an endgame crisis for turn 1. You know he's coming, and you're going to have to deal with him in the vast majority of situations. And everyone else also dislikes you with the exception of Chaos. Only Chaos is like kind of ambivalent towards you. That doesn't mean they don't hate you. They do. But they're just like, okay, we can trade with these guys. We can get good diplomatic relations with them. There's also research, tower seats. If you have Astrogoth, you can get obviously a special skill line to buff that. But even Cast doesn't really care about the Cast Dwarves. Everyone else hates you to varying degrees. When the Skaven hate you, you know you're fairly diabolical. Though to be fair, the Cast Dwarves hate them more. Like Cast Dwarves have a -60 aversion against Skaven. Skaven have a -25 aversion from, or rather, to put it differently, like if you're playing a Skaven, you get -60 aversion with the Cast Dwarves. If you're playing Cast Dwarves, it's -25 aversion. So both of them do hate each other to a degree or another, and obviously that's going to cause issues because you have Skaven Legend Lords. Like, what's insane about this campaign is like virtually every faction around you, with the exception of Greasus, and he's not your friend. But every faction around you, every legendary lord around you, hates you. Emmerich, Trench, Gorst, Grimgor. I mean, you can be friends with Kolek, I suppose. The Dwarves, Queek. Well, you can be friends with Queek. I suppose he'll like what you'll do to Emmerich specifically. Like, if you wipe out Emmerich, you can be pretty good friends with Queek. But otherwise, a lot of factions hate you. A lot of factions will be gunning for you. And you'll have to be careful. This is not a one-dimensional campaign, which certainly other campaigns can feel like, even on this list. This is a campaign where you'll be fighting on multiple fronts, and you'll have to manage that carefully. Or you do your best to avoid doing that, but it will require careful planning and strategy. So I think this kind of campaign that can push you to become a much better player than you are otherwise. So that's why I think it's the best campaign currently in the game. Grimgor is stronger, absolutely, but I do think Drazhoath's campaign is a lot more fun. It's got better design. The race itself is the best designed race in the game at the moment. So yeah, there's a lot of things to like about it. Costin here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.